Hi, everyone. My name is Daren Matsuoka, and as Chris mentioned, I'm here to present the 2024 State of Crypto Report. We first started doing this report 3 years ago, back in 2022, and at the time, we were excited about transaction fees being in the single-digit dollars on a handful of brand new Layer 2s. These Layer 2s accounted for just 1% of activity on Ethereum. There were no crypto ETFs, and this technology certainly was not top of mind for policymakers. And Ethereum was still consuming huge amounts of energy with proof of work. As we're about to cover, the world has changed a lot since then. Let's dive in. This report is divided into 6 sections. We'll start by sizing up the industry. We'll talk about how crypto has entered the main stage as an important political topic. We'll discuss the infrastructure improvements, the emerging applications. We'll share some proprietary data that we have on builders, and then end with a few thoughts on where we're headed. So, how big is crypto today? This is a question that we get all the time. As a starting point, you can see that monthly active addresses are at an all-time high. And if you overlay a time-shifted plot of internet users starting in 1992, you'll see that we're on a somewhat similar trajectory. Now, I'll be the first to tell you that active addresses is not the best measure of real crypto users. And in the coming slides, we'll do our best to unpack what's behind those addresses and provide an estimate of what we think the real number is. Still, monthly on-chain usage is an intentionally strict measure of crypto adoption, and there's plenty to be excited about with the overall trend here. So we'll see what happens between now and 2031 on our path to what is hopefully 1 billion crypto users. Now, which blockchains are these users transacting on? Of course, there is a lot of noise and sensitivity when it comes to comparing chains, but I don't think it's unfair to say that Base and Solana were some of the top destinations for crypto users in 2024. Now, I'd caution you in drawing too many conclusions from this data alone, but I think the bigger point here is that we are in a multi-chain world, and there is plenty of high-quality block space to build on. Another data source that we like to look at is mobile wallet users, which is harder to gain because it comes from the App Store and Google Play Store. Just like active addresses, we recently hit an all-time high, and if you look at the geographic trends, you'll see that countries like Nigeria, India, and Argentina are growing quickly. You might also notice the US's diminishing market share over the last few years. That's the dark blue, which has gone from a majority share to less than 20% as crypto becomes more global. Here's an attempt to size up the industry. We believe that there are 30 to 60 million real users transacting monthly. This is based on an internal analysis where we took a number of different approaches to the estimate. We don't have time to go into the details here, but we did publish a separate write-up on our latest thinking around this topic if you're interested. But if you take the 30 to 60 million number and you compare it to the 617 million people who reportedly own crypto, you'll see that there's a huge growth opportunity to convert existing crypto owners into active crypto users by bringing people on-chain. We are now just a few weeks out from the US presidential election, and it's clear that crypto has now become an important political issue. There is a ton of noise out there, but the truth is crypto has seen bipartisan support. The quotes on this slide from key political leaders, including Vice President Harris and former President Trump, show that they're ready to pass legislation and give this industry much-needed regulatory clarity. I think our policy team would say there's still a lot of work to do, but we're optimistic that the US will eventually get this right. Now, I don't think it's a coincidence that all this support comes in an election year. As we know, this is shaping up to be a very tight race that will likely be decided by a handful of counties in a handful of swing states. So we did an analysis using Google Trends data where we looked at the relative change in crypto search interest over a basket of terms from 2020 to 2024, and we found that Pennsylvania and Wisconsin are in the top 5. Michigan is in the top 10. There are 40 million Americans who own crypto. They're young, bipartisan, and could throw their weight behind crypto-friendly candidates. Election aside, there are real policy discussions happening around the world. Our team pulled together some data on crypto-related consultations across topics, authorities, and jurisdictions, and we found that jurisdictions like the EU and the UK are actually ahead of the United States when it comes to public engagement. All this work has put us on a good path toward regulatory clarity for the crypto industry. The results speak for themselves. DUNA, which recognizes DAOs as legal entities, was signed into law in the state of Wyoming in March. We believe this could become an industry standard for decentralized protocols. FIT21, a bill that provides clear rules while promoting crypto innovation in America, received support from 71 House Democrats in May. The EU regulations are also coming online, with MiCA's full regulatory framework becoming applicable in December. With the shifting political winds, a headline story in 2024 was the surprise approvals of Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, or more properly stated, ETPs. While the inflow numbers haven't been that high, I've talked to some experts and they say that getting the distributors activated is just something that's going to take time. I think this is a big deal because it legitimizes crypto as an asset class and puts it on a path to being a part of every diversified portfolio. There are also national security concerns for policymakers to consider. As many of you know, the US dollar's status as a reserve currency gives the United States tremendous power. But it's under threat from foreign sovereign digital currencies. Since Russia invaded Ukraine and sanctions were imposed, wholesale CBDC developments have doubled. So what should the US do about this? Well, the opportunity is right there. Over 99% of stablecoin market cap is denominated in USD. This split is unusually high. We know that the dollar dominates the global economy, but not nearly to this level, as you can see with foreign exchange reserves, which are in decline, international debt, loans, and payments. So rather than developing a US central bank digital currency, why not embrace what's already working? Stablecoins are also a big source of demand for the growing US debt. In less than a decade, stablecoins have become a top 20 holder of US treasuries. This is ahead of entire countries like Germany. Stablecoins are especially useful in countries with rampant inflation. In Argentina, for example, there's a direct negative correlation between the purchasing power of the Argentine peso and the country's stablecoin trading. These people are using stablecoins to protect their assets. We also wanted to show the consolidation of power that's happening across the US economy. The number of US banks is in steep decline, with the top 5 now controlling close to half of all assets. 6 tech companies are worth more than 50% of the NASDAQ 100. This consolidation is worrisome, but crypto can help decentralize power. Now, we can't talk about the state of crypto in 2024 without talking about all the infrastructure improvements. There are still lots of unknowns when it comes to blockchain scaling, but I think one thing has become pretty clear. The future of crypto is multi-chain. Blockchains are becoming more and more interoperable, and Ethereum is serving as a central hub for flows. Speaking of Ethereum, the Layer 2 vision is finally becoming a reality. For a long time now, we've been tracking the percentage of L1 fees paid by rollups, and that number was up only. That is, until earlier this year with EIP 4844, also called proto-danksharding, which was an upgrade that significantly reduced costs for Layer 2s. We also show the ETH-denominated value on L2, which indicates that this drop is a result of cost reduction, not lack of L2 adoption. But the important question to ask is, how does this impact users? Let's look through the lens of trying to send US dollars internationally. Without crypto, you could use a wire transfer and pay about $44. In 2021, you could have used USDC on Ethereum and paid about $12. Today, you could use USDC on Ethereum and pay about $1, or you could use USDC on Base, a Layer 2, and pay less than a cent. This is a more than 99% cost reduction, and this is what infrastructure improvements are all about. Of course, Ethereum and the L2s are not the only way to scale blockchains. Other high-throughput Layer 1 chains like Solana, Ton, Sui, Aptos, and Near are gaining significant traction with users and developers. Another way to illustrate the progress is to look at the number of actual transactions processed per second on January 1st, 2020, less than 4 years ago. Since then, we've more than 50x'd the transaction throughput, which unlocks entirely new applications that are only now possible. Account abstraction, and I'd say better user experiences more generally, is a critical part of the infrastructure story. Using smart contract wallets can provide tremendous benefits for users. This includes things like social recovery options, sponsored gas fees, and more efficient bundling. In the last 3 months, roughly 10% of user actions on Base were invoked by 4337 account abstraction. Zero-knowledge proofs are also a key unlock for crypto infrastructure. It's potentially the endgame solution for scaling, privacy, and interoperability. We're seeing more and more ZK apps in production. The ZK rollups are coming online, and there are now over 250 active projects working in the space. ZK also unlocks a whole new programming paradigm for developers. By pushing a lot of the complex logic off-chain and proving it on-chain, we can create a much richer design space for applications. For example, proving data from an existing Web 2 service using something like ZK-TLS or ZK email is extremely interesting. ZK tech has improved at a pace that I think few people would have imagined. But our research and engineering teams will be the first to tell you that we still have a very long way to go. State-of-the-art ZK virtual machines have improved by roughly 10x in the last couple of years, but we're still in the 1960s era on the classic Moore's Law chart for microprocessors. Staking, and more recently restaking, has been an important trend to watch since Ethereum transitioned to proof of stake in 2022. Currently, 29% of all ETH is staked, and 5% is restaked, mostly into the Eigenlayer protocol. This creates billions of dollars in security for the network. Now, all these infrastructure improvements are for nothing if we don't have applications. So what are the key crypto apps that are emerging? We can look at different application categories by their number of daily active addresses. Today, DeFi and stablecoins dominate activity. It's still early days for things like gaming and social, but there are some promising emerging behaviors, which we'll talk about. One category that has found product market fit is stablecoins. The stablecoin supply is back to all-time highs, and today it's largely a two-horse race between USDC and Tether. The fact that we can even put stablecoins into a comparison against PayPal, Visa, ACH, and the Fedwire is mind-blowing. It's becoming clear that stablecoins are a killer app for crypto. One criticism we've seen is that stablecoins are just used for crypto trading. But the recent growth in stablecoins is actually uncorrelated with crypto market cycles. This shows that there is adoption beyond just trading use cases. Another significant area of development that we've seen is at the intersection of crypto and AI. It's no secret that AI training takes a huge amount of compute resources, and only the biggest tech companies have access to those resources. Therefore, AI is an extremely centralizing technology. Crypto can be a counterbalancing force, and there are a number of interesting ideas. The AI industry will face extraordinary challenges. We're trending toward a world of endless deepfakes, but crypto can help us track the authenticity and origins of the things we see online. A good example is the C2PA standard for signed digital media and using ZK proofs to show that only certain modifications were made. We're also trending toward a world of growing compute costs and GPU shortages, but companies like Jensen can help democratize access to the long tail of otherwise idle resources. We know that trust in AI companies is falling, but crypto can make things more transparent and auditable. Blockchains like Near are doubling down, building the infrastructure to make this possible. And finally, AI will be big, but currently, creators and data contributors are receiving nothing. Companies like Story Protocol are using blockchains as a global coordination layer for data and IP. The crypto industry is clearly thinking about this. AI was the breakaway narrative among crypto social circles in 2024, and web traffic data indicates that there may be a large overlap between crypto and AI users. As a result, we expect to see significant development at the intersection of these two technologies. The NFT market has not been quite as hot as AI. We've seen a 90+% decrease in trading volume, and creators have faced some very unique challenges around enforcing royalties. But the reality is that the NFT market is very much alive. However, behavior has shifted, and it's all driven by infrastructure developments. If you look at the number of NFT collections with 50+ unique minters, the trend is very positive. What's happened here is that L2s unlocked cheaper fees, which shifted us from high-priced, high-volume speculative secondary markets to low-cost social collecting experiences. And this is only possible in a low-fee environment. A lot of the speculative NFT activity from prior years shifted in 2024 into meme coins. There are over 10,000 meme coins created daily, and Solana is the most popular trading venue. Chris Dixon argues in his op-ed that this type of speculative activity is proliferating, because there are less regulatory hurdles compared to crypto with more productive use cases. Speculation still has its place in DeFi, but the space has matured quite a bit since that crazy summer of 2020. There are now thousands of protocols controlling billions of dollars. Staking and restaking, as we discussed earlier, captures a majority of TVL, and the category leaders are emerging. Decentralized exchanges have grown their market share fairly steadily against centralized counterparts, and now over 10% of spot trading is happening on DEXs. As DeFi security measures developed, we've seen that hackers may have turned their attention back to more centralized services. Most crypto theft now happens on centralized services, not DeFi platforms. Prediction markets have been another hot area in 2024. Volume on Polymarket has skyrocketed ahead of the election, and its use as a forecasting tool has gotten mainstream attention. We expect to see more innovation in this pocket of crypto. For builders, DAO treasuries may be one of the more underappreciated sources of funding. DAOs hold $15 billion in liquid tokens today, which is more than the entire amount of VC investments into crypto companies in the last year. These war chests, if deployed effectively, can be used to fund ecosystem development for years to come. One of the most interesting emerging categories in crypto has to be DePIN. It's still early days, and there are some particularly hard challenges to solve, but there are promising attempts being made to decentralize critical physical infrastructure networks in the real world. Helium is a pioneer in this category with their decentralized LoRaWAN and 5G wireless networks, and we're now seeing innovation across new categories like mapping, weather, vehicle and mobility data, energy, and food delivery, to name a few. History has shown us that games have long been a key source of innovation in software. Now, in the crypto space, on-chain games are pushing blockchain scaling to its limits. If you look at a leaderboard of blockchain resources consumed, it's mostly gaming-focused chains. Just like Web3 gaming and DePIN, it's early days for decentralized social. But the DeSo experiment is underway, and Farcaster is leading the charge. There are vibrant developer ecosystems emerging around these open protocols, and lots of smart developers are launching new products every day. We know that the heartbeat of the crypto industry is, of course, the builders. A16Z Crypto tracks thousands of companies through investment team research, crypto startup accelerator applications, and industry-wide tracking, and we now have some new tools that allow us to share aggregated data. Starting with blockchains, we ask builders what chains they're interested in building on. Ethereum and the L2s capture a majority of mindshare today, with Base in particular being a breakout ecosystem in 2024. But not all innovation is happening around Ethereum. In fact, Solana and Bitcoin saw some of the biggest increases in builder interest this year. We can also look across categories, and we see that DeFi, blockchain infrastructure, and DePIN are the highest growth areas in 2024. Getting one level deeper, we can look at subcategories, and we see that real-world assets and payments seem to be attracting the most builders. We can also look at the intersection of applied technologies and project categorization. As you might expect, we saw a surging interest in AI, which is commonly used by infra, DeFi, DePIN, and picks and shovels projects. And lastly, we can look at the geographic trends to see where crypto founders report being based. Crypto is clearly international, with the US, Europe, and Asia as the most significant markets. Getting more granular, we can see that New York and San Francisco are some of the fastest growing crypto hubs. If you're interested in digging deeper, we released the Builder Energy Dashboard. It includes some cool interactive visualizations around all this data, and you can check it out at builderenergy.a16zcrypto.com. So what's next for crypto? The way that we think about crypto markets is that while they look chaotic from the outside, there's actually an underlying order to the madness. We call this the price innovation cycle, and the idea is that when prices go up, people get interested, developers build, and then new products kickstart the next wave. We've seen this now 4 times since Bitcoin's inception. The big question now is, are we entering the 5th wave? While prices have gone up, it's admittedly been a bit hard to tell if it's driven by net new interest and innovation or more external factors like the ETFs and the political tailwinds. Even if we're not in the 5th wave, the quality of builders and the product pipeline that we have visibility into is strong. And as ChatGPT showed us, it only takes one product to shift an entire industry. If we take a step back and we look at the state of crypto in 2024, we should be proud of how far we've come, and I hope this report shows that. Thank you. We're now going to transition into a quick Q&A, and as part of that, I'm going to invite our CTO, Eddie Lazarin, up to the stage.
What are you guys seeing? Maybe I missed it. Is there anything particularly on the privacy side of use cases, especially on the stable coins? Confidentiality.
Yeah, I have heard about a few confidentiality projects, but as we know, those aren't really live right now. I just don't know. You saw most of the data here ended around September 30th, but I have been hearing about a lot of projects where people do want to add a compliant privacy or confidentiality layer on top of payments, on top of other types of things. I'm pretty confident that it's going to be a major category, and hopefully there's enough data for us to tell that story next time. Yeah, I think we have over here.
Yep. Will from Syndicate. I found it interesting that you didn't cover very much enterprise adoption of crypto. Is that because it didn't rise to the level of notable changes in the report, or some other reason?
No, well, anecdotally, I've been hearing about a lot of really interesting integrations and partnerships. Honestly, like if you tabulated my personal number of introductions, conversations, high-quality recommendations I've been making for people to select, enterprise vendors or make partnerships that are really fruitful, I'm definitely at an all-time high, personally. I just think as a data set, I don't know that there's like an obvious sort of public or quasi-public data set to collect. We'd have to kind of like poll portfolio companies or something like that. But that's a good note to take into consideration. I personally think that is also at an all-time high.
I think we see a lot on real-world assets or financial instruments like bonds, equities, and so on. This is way harder in the US, but a bunch of other countries are experimenting with this. So I'm curious how you guys think about it.
It was actually one of our top subcategories, just looking at the data from builders that we collect. And we did notice that it was a top subcategory in 2024. We saw a lot of growth into that area specifically. I think similar to what Eddie said about the last question, it's a bit hard to get data on some of these things, and we really tried to make this a data-focused report. And so I think it was more just a function of that than anything, but definitely an area that we're excited about and one that we've seen attract a lot of builders.
I'm curious what goes into the framework where you define a user active versus just a wallet, like just the high-level principles that you use.
Yeah, so high level, we did publish a separate write-up on this, and so you should definitely check it out. High level, though, there's a few different numbers that we have, right? One is the 617 million people who just kind of own crypto but aren't actively using crypto. And then we kind of state that 5 to 10% of those, 30 to 60 million, are what we think are real people that are actively transacting monthly. And the way that we get to that number, we basically take two different approaches. One is, filtering the active addresses based on different types of on-chain activity that makes it suspected of being a bot or a transient address or, someone that is trying to game the numbers. And so we do kind of a lot of different filtering. There's a number of methodologies that we have pursued to get to the number. And then we triangulate with another approach where we look at some of the reported wallet data that we get from MetaMask and other companies and kind of some market share estimates that we have on the mobile wallet side to try to hone in on the specific number. But we did an analysis, we posted about it, and the result was 30 to 60 million people that we think are transacting on-chain monthly, which is just 5 to 10% of the people who own crypto, which I think for the industry presents a big opportunity, right, to bring these people on-chain, convert those owners into users.
What do you all think of the developing Bitcoin ecosystem? Bitcoin L2s, Bitcoin staking, everything that's going on in that area?
As you saw in the report, it actually is a source of growing builder interest, which it's just interesting to see how when you see stuff on crypto Twitter, sometimes there is a relationship with reality. I like that. Yeah, I think it's early. Of course, as we all know, Bitcoin's relatively limited programmability makes it hard to build serious applications on top of. There are a few efforts like Lightspark, I'm sure is here, who are trying to make that happen, but it is challenging. Most of the builder energy we saw is directed at these Bitcoin L2s, as they call them. Like there's some questions about how to specifically define what that means, but they do offer increasing programmability that has some infrastructural connection to Bitcoin. That's most of the interest.
Matt, co-founder XMTP. So you had, along the lines of the builder question, a chart that showed that active developers are somewhere at the 2021 level now. So it went down a good bit. But you also showed that the US percentage was a good bit higher. How much of that could be attributed to just, say, the rest of the globe maybe softening on developing in crypto? Or is there some indication that some more regulatory clarity is putting a bit more confidence in US-based developers, and therefore they're coming in and developing more?
Yeah, I think there's actually a number of different factors at play here. Of course, I think the developer number going down, that's something that we've looked into quite a bit. I think part of what is happening there is just as crypto as an industry matures, a lot of the development activity now is happening more in private repos as opposed to public repos that are often associated with more of the infrastructure layer. And so I think a lot of it is just we're unable to detect a lot of the development activity that's happening. And then in terms of the globalization, again, the builder energy data that we present is kind of very much our data, which is representative of our point of view, the companies and projects that we meet with. We do, attempt to track it in other areas as well, but there may be, admittedly a slight bias towards just the types of companies that we meet with. But on the wallet side, we are very much seeing the U.S. lose market share relative to the rest of the world. And so I think there's a number of different factors. It's hard to tease them all out. Certainly, the
could I
policy
actually do
stuff.
a quick mini poll? Is could you raise your hand if either most of your development effort happens in private repos, or if most of your development effort has shifted into private repos? So who's private? Yeah, just not visible on GitHub. Okay, yeah, pretty good number. Okay, just curious.
Percentage, yeah.
Okay, interesting. I will ask some of you more later. We could, another one.
Two questions. Also, I have to say, after doing all hands Q&A, it's really fun to be on this side of it. First, can you elaborate a little bit more about where you think we are in the market cycle in terms of bull market, bear market? And I know no one knows, but if you can just give us your best guess. Second, talk us through if each of the different candidates for president wins, especially in the Kamala case, what does that look like to your guys' best knowledge?
So I'm going to punt on the second question because we have a great conversation on that. I'm going to punt on that totally. On the first question, in terms of where we are in the cycle, obviously I'm totally making this up and literally inventing this totally. So there's no advice in this. But I personally think, as Daren highlighted, we're in a period where we have a lot more high quality block space, more capacity, right? That capacity takes time to be absorbed and to be used creatively and productively by builders. It's not like the block space lands and these high quality blockchains, new programming environments, new expanded L2s. It's not like that happens and then people just immediately know how to consume it. They need to experiment. A great example, I think, is that NFT slide, right? In the NFT slide, because of the increased capacity, you can finally have, again, people doing all kinds of goofy, silly experiments at a very, very low cost. And those goofy experiments are what's going to lead to the new products of the future that end up utilizing that new block space. So if you think of the block space as having kind of come online middle of this year, obviously EIP 4844 was late March, combine that with all the new blockchains that have launched, I think it's reasonable to assume it might take a year, maybe 2 years, maybe a little longer, who knows, for people to figure out how to use that. So I'd say we're probably 6 months into a 2-year period where people figure out what to do with the extra capacity.
Do you think it's more, it sounds like you think it's more technology based than financial markets or interest rates?
Personally, I think technology is the prime mover, and that the financial markets are important, but technology's effect is smoothed out over a much longer time. And of course, it can be hindered and it can be aided by favorable financial markets, but that's the pattern. That's my personal thought.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're out of time.
Yeah, we are out of time. So thank you very much.
Thank you.